All right. So, have you ever been like at a party, right? And everything's kind of buzzing along, and you're like finally maybe cornering the host to get another drink and then something shifts. It's like almost this tangible feeling where the energy in the room just changes.
Yeah?
And there's this unspoken kind of tension that just fills the air.
Yeah, like a heaviness.
Yeah, and it's weird, right? Because you feel it in your body too,
Absolutely.
It's like a clenching or like a little dip in your stomach.
Oh, yeah, that gut feeling.
Right, exactly that gut feeling. But what if I told you that maybe that sensation, that like instant visceral reaction isn't coming from your gut at all?
Ooh, interesting.
What if the real MVP of this whole awareness thing is actually somewhere else, like an organ that we usually just think of as, our body's dedicated pump?
You're talking about the heart.
The heart, exactly. And that's what this deep dive is all about. We're going to go way beyond, that simple biological definition of the heart.
Right.
Forget those diagrams from high school biology class.
Yeah.
We're talking about looking at the heart in a whole new light. And honestly, some of the stuff we uncovered while researching this is seriously mind-blowing.
But, it's funny because when you were describing that experience at the party, what really resonated with me was that you were talking about this intuitive sense, this feeling that goes beyond just logic.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And the sources that we've been looking at for this episode, they suggest that the heart plays a much bigger part in these kinds of perceptions than we usually give it credit for.
Totally.
We're so used to just thinking of it as the circulatory system.
Right. The pump.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But there's actually a lot of evidence that's starting to emerge that suggests that it's also super involved in our emotional lives and even our intuition.
It's so true. And you're probably listening to this and thinking like, okay, yeah, my heart pumps blood. What's the big deal, right?
Yeah.
But what if this organ, this thing that's beating in your chest right now is actually like the unsung hero of your entire experience? Like it's the foundation for how you interact with the world.
That's a cool way to put it.
Right. So we're going to explore some really wild territory here, and it might actually change the way you think about what it means to be you.
Awesome. I'm excited.
Okay, so let's just jump right into it. One of the things that I found so fascinating and honestly kind of freaky was learning that the heart is the very first organ to form.
Oh, wow.
When you're like a tiny little embryo, before your brain even starts to develop, there's this little heart already beating away.
That's crazy. I never knew that.
Yeah, and apparently scientists were totally baffled by this at first, because our whole understanding of the body is that the brain is in charge, right?
Right.
So like what's running the show before the conductor even shows up?
That's a great question.
Right. And this is where things start to get really interesting because one of the sources had this idea that the heart is actually the most spiritual organ.
Okay, now spiritual, I know that word can be a little loaded.
Right. And I know that might sound kind of woo-woo for some people.
Yeah.
But the way I understood it is it's not really about religion or dogma or anything like that.
Oh.
It's more about this idea that the heart is like this fundamental connection point.
I see.
It's like a direct line to something bigger than ourselves. Whether you call it the universe or God or the quantum field or whatever. And the idea is that it's like this central hub for manifestation, for bringing our intentions and desires into being.
So instead of the brain being the control center, it's more like the heart is the one calling the shots when it comes to shaping our reality.
Exactly. It's like our brain is all about overthinking and analyzing.
Oh, yeah.
But our heart is like the key to actually making stuff happen.
Interesting.
And this brings us to emotions, which are, kind of the heart's domain.
Yeah. Emotions are definitely a big part of what makes us human.
Right, but we tend to think of them as just these fleeting feelings, right?
Yeah, just something that happens to us.
But the source we looked at presents this totally different perspective.
Yeah.
It says that emotions aren't just feelings, they're actually energy.
Energy.
Yeah, and each emotion has its own specific vibration and frequency.
Well, okay, hold on. So you're saying that like every time I feel happy or sad or angry, there's actually a different energetic frequency being emitted.
Exactly. It's like each emotion has its own unique energetic signature.
That's wild.
Right. And to kind of illustrate this, the source uses this analogy of tuning a radio.
Okay.
So each emotion is like a different radio station with its own frequency.
I see.
And your heart, through the emotions it generates and experiences, is basically what tunes you into different frequencies of reality.
So like what I'm feeling is actually influencing what I attract and experience in my life.
Exactly, whether it's success or challenges or the things you want to manifest.
That's a pretty powerful idea.
And to back this up, the source talks about this guy, Dr. David Hawkins, who did this research where he mapped emotional frequencies on a scale.
Okay.
So at the bottom of the scale, you have those like low vibe emotions like fear and anger.
Right.
And at the top, you have the high vibe ones like love and joy. And the idea is that our prevailing emotional state, like the frequency we're broadcasting most of the time, is actually shaping how we interact with the world. It's like constantly transmitting on a frequency of negativity versus a frequency of positivity.
That makes sense. You can totally feel the difference when you're around someone who's really angry versus someone who's super joyful.
Exactly. You walk into a room and you can just sense the energy, right?
Yeah, like you can feel that heaviness in the air if someone's upset.
And the source connects this to the heart's electromagnetic field.
Okay, so this is where it gets even more interesting, right?
Yeah, because get this, the HeartMath Institute, they've done a ton of research on this, and they found that the heart's electromagnetic field is way stronger than the brain's.
Way stronger. How much stronger are we talking?
Like 60 to 100 times stronger.
No way. That's huge.
Yeah, it's a massive difference. And what that means is that the heart isn't just passively reacting to our thoughts and feelings.
Okay.
It's actively emitting its own powerful energetic signals. It's like it's communicating with our bodies and maybe even beyond.
So it's not just receiving information from the brain, it's actually sending out its own information too.
Exactly. And that brings us to another crazy discovery, the heart's brain.
Wait, the heart has a brain.
Yeah, I know it sounds crazy, right?
It's wild.
But it's not just some poetic metaphor.
Okay.
Apparently, the heart has this complex network of over 40,000 neurons and its own independent nervous system.
So it's like a mini brain in there.
Right, a legit brain. And get this, it's involved in storing memories.
No way. So when we say, I know it by heart, it's not just a saying.
Right, it suggests this whole other level of knowing that's happening on a deeper level.
That's fascinating.
And the source has some really compelling stories about this, especially when it comes to heart transplant recipients.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah, so there are all these accounts of people who get heart transplants, and then they start having new cravings or artistic interests or even personality traits that match the donor.
It's like they're inheriting some of the donor's memories and experiences.
Right. There's this one story that really stuck with me about this guy who got a heart transplant, and then suddenly he was craving spicy tacos all the time.
Spicy tacos.
Yeah. And it turned out that the donor was like a total taco fiend.
Oh, wow. So it's like the heart was carrying those memories.
It's pretty mind-blowing, right? And what's even more interesting is that this isn't some new age idea.
Okay.
The source points out that ancient cultures were onto this too, like the Egyptians. They believed that the heart was the seat of the soul.
Right. I remember learning about that in history class.
Yeah, and they thought that it held a record of all your deeds in life and that it would be weighed in the afterlife.
Well, like a cosmic report card.
Right. And it's not just the Egyptians. The source also brings in wisdom from other traditions like the Bible.
Okay.
So there's this verse in Proverbs that says, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he."
Interesting.
And another one that says, "Guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it."
So even thousands of years ago, they were emphasizing the importance of the heart.
Exactly. And it's not just Western traditions either. The source also mentions an Islamic hadith that talks about how the heart is central to the health and well-being of the whole body.
It seems like across so many cultures and throughout history, people have recognized that the heart is much more than just a pump.
Right. It's like this deep intuitive understanding that it plays a much bigger role in our lives.
Absolutely.
So let's bring this back to something that I think a lot of people are interested in, which is manifestation.
Okay, manifestation, yeah.
The source talks about how they tried to manifest things using just like brain-based techniques, you know?
Like visualizations and affirmations and stuff?
Exactly. But it wasn't really working.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Right. It's like you're putting in all this mental effort, but you're not seeing the results.
Yeah, it can be super frustrating.
Totally. And the point that the source makes is that manifestation isn't just a cognitive exercise.
Okay.
It's more like a partnership between the brain and the heart.
I like that, a tag team effort.
Exactly. So the brain might be where we generate ideas and intentions.
Right.
But it's the heart that provides the energetic power to actually bring those intentions into reality.
Because the heart is where the emotions are.
Right. And the source really emphasizes that without that genuine emotional energy behind it, affirmations and visualizations are just kind of empty.
It's like trying to start a fire without any kindling.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's like you have the intention, but the power source is missing.
Makes sense.
And the source tells this really relatable story about how they were trying to manifest wealth and they were doing all the right things, visualizing and stuff.
Ah,
But at the same time, they were feeling stressed and skeptical and it just wasn't working.
because their heart wasn't in it.
Exactly. And the source uses this really vivid language to describe this. They talk about emotion being like the supercharger,
Okay.
the secret sauce,
Secret sauce, I love that.
right? And even the language of God. And the key takeaway here is that you have to actually feel the reality of what you want in your heart for it to manifest.
It's not enough to just think it. You have to feel it.
Exactly. And that leads us to the practical steps that the source outlines for actually working with your heart.
Okay, so how do we do this? How do we hack our hearts?
Right. And thankfully, no coding required.
Good, because I'm not very tech savvy.
So the first step is to consciously infuse your manifestations with positive emotions.
Okay.
Like joy and gratitude and excitement. Really get your heart invested in the outcome.
Makes sense.
And then the next step is emotional regulation.
The emotional regulation.
Yeah, basically learning how to navigate all the ups and downs of life without letting external events constantly throw your heart into a state of negativity.
Oh, so like not letting your emotions get hijacked by every little thing that happens?
Exactly, because when your heart is in a state of stress or fear, it's like broadcasting on a low frequency, and that can actually block you from manifesting the things you want.
Right, so you need to cultivate that inner stability.
Exactly. And that brings us to the third step, which is developing strategies for shifting out of negative emotional states when they do arise.
Okay, because let's be real, we all experience negative emotions sometimes.
Right. It's inevitable. But the key is to have tools to consciously raise your emotional frequency.
Gotcha.
And then finally, the source talks about cultivating a baseline state of happiness, peace, and joy.
That sounds lovely.
Right. And it's not just about feeling good. It's about creating the optimal conditions for your heart to thrive.
I see. So it's like setting the stage for positive manifestation.
Exactly.
This is all so fascinating. I'm really starting to see the heart in a whole new light.
Me too. And, when you put it all together, it really points to this bigger idea that the heart is so much more than just a pump.
It's like a bridge to something greater.
Right. It's like this fundamental connection to something larger than ourselves, whether you call it God or the universe or the quantum field.
And if that's true, then it makes sense that we need to take care of our hearts, not just physically, but also emotionally and energetically.
Absolutely. It's about nurturing that connection to something bigger and tapping into our own inner power.
I love that.
And, the source also mentions some additional resources for people who want to go deeper into this stuff.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
They have a coaching program for entrepreneurs who want to use these principles to create more success.
Cool.
And they also have a newsletter where they share tips and insights about heart-centered living.
Sounds like there's a whole community of people who are exploring this.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see so many people embracing this new way of thinking about the heart.
Absolutely.
So to wrap things up, the big takeaway here is that your heart is way more powerful than you probably ever realized.
It's involved in our emotions, our memories, and even our ability to shape our reality.
It's like the unsung hero of our entire experience, and it deserves a lot more credit than we give it.
I totally agree.
So next time you feel that little nudge, that intuitive feeling, take a moment to tune into your heart. It might be trying to tell you something.
That's good advice.
And until next time, unless time is just an illusion, which, let's be real, it probably is.
Uh-huh. Yeah, maybe it is.
All right, catch you later.